Hey, what's going on, everyone? It is dark outside. We are going to do a nighttime deal. Someone responded to one of my ads in which I'm looking for comic books and collectibles that I post onto Craigslist. And so we arranged a place to meet up, a public place, just to make sure that we are safe. It's a local gas station and stuff, so there'll be plenty of people around. And this is a big tote of comic books that we've already set a price for $30 on. And plus, he also has a big tote of stamps. Now, I don't usually do anything with stamps, but if it's a good enough deal where I feel like I could grab it and then, maybe learn something in the process, I'll pick it up. I told him likely not, but you never know. We'll see. So let's head on over there, see what we can find. So I really like to get these deals when they are available and not wait around for the next day or for a couple days later. As soon as a person's around, I like to try to get them. And this is the gas station that I picked. You could see it is well lit. There are people around inside, people driving around. It's nice and safe. So, people hanging out outside. This is the kind of thing you want to look for if you're going to do something at night. I don't advise that for everybody, but if you're going to do it, a police station is another good place that people will go to, but this is where we chose. And I'm going to park right out here so we're in sight of everybody. All right, the deal is done. It went very well. I wound up getting the tote of comics and the tote of stamps that had other miscellaneous things in them. I'll show you. Let me turn around and I'll show you the basics of it. I have not even begun to scratch the surface of this stuff. Now, just before I open up those lids, turns out, I asked him this when we got here, where does this stuff come from? Turns out it's not his. It belonged to his aunt, who was 80 years old. She passed away, and then he wound up getting all the contents. And so he's trying to find people to sell the stuff to. And so this is what we got. Let me turn around and show you what's under those lids. All right, so these are the two totes, and I was very excited to see that they had dirt and scratch marks all over them. To me, it's like a type of patina. I love seeing this stuff. The reason is because it takes a while for all of this dirt and smudge marks and stuff to acquire on the outside of it. So you can even see like it's yellowed here on the outside. That's a great indicator of age, and it indicates that the contents inside are old. So it's consistent with the guy's story that his aunt had these stored for quite a while. So this is the one that had the comic books in it. And you can see here, it's quite a lot of stuff inside of this tote. I have not gone through all of these at all. I just did a little bit of a skim just to make sure, they were generally in decent condition, and they are. Some of them are bagged and boarded, which is good. We have some 80s and 90s stuff here in terms of this Star Trek stuff, so that's cool. Thrifty Esme should like this. Go check out her YouTube channel because she's a big Star Trek fan. Just showing you a few on the surface. We'll do a deeper dive at Primetime Treasure headquarters, some newer Spider-Man, but this one is cool. This is a nice 1970s Weird Worlds with Tarzan on it battling the skeleton. We've got an older X-Men annual there. So there's a lot of stuff in there to go through. So I'm excited about that stuff. So $30 for this. And then the big question was, what was going to be inside of this tote? And it turns out it's mostly stamp-based stuff. There's a couple miscellaneous things on the top here, like these NASCAR cars and stuff, but these are just like little throw-ins and stuff. So I didn't even factor that stuff in. Now it looks mostly like postage stamps. There's some of these green stamps from S&H, the Quicksaver books. These are not worth much. You have to have a big giant stack of them filled with the stamps. You would get them at like retail stores and gas stations, and you'd fill up the book and then you'd redeem them for gifts and stuff. They were popular from like the 30s to even the 80s until they faded out, but this whole bag is like filled with these things in there. So there's definitely some money in there, but not a lot. Then there's a lot of envelopes here that are sealed, like this one says Canada, and if you feel it, there's got to be stamps inside of them. I didn't open it up, but that's what it feels like. Like you could see this one says Czechoslovakia, this one says Indonesia, I mean, it looks pretty cool. And then the thing that really sealed the deal for me, that made me want to get these, is that when I was going through it and, you know, just kind of pulling up things, you see the age of that stamp book right there? And that's an old book, it's an old binder. And then when I opened it up, it just peeked inside, I saw that they were filled with stamps. And I think this might have been one that I was looking at. You could see at least some of them had, there's some stamps in this one. You know, some of them are blank, but there were stamps in, you know, in these books. So we will see. Total for this one, we went not back and forth much on it. Originally, you know, he didn't know what to ask for it. I didn't either. I threw out $30 and he said about 75, you know, total for both of them. So he was asking 45 for it, and we settled on 40. So I got everything here for a total of $70 with, importantly, you know, a good contact now for some future stuff possibly at the house. And he even talked about possibly having me over there and, you know, doing a little treasure hunt. So that might be in the future. We shall see. But for now, let's bring this back to Primetime Treasure headquarters and do a deeper dive of what is inside of here. Hey, Daisy, what do you say we get into these comic books right now? Daisy's excited. I am too. Let's go. All right, so I've got both totes down here in the Bat Cave, and let me just tell you what I did with the comic one first before we go in and take them all out of there. All right, so I took all the comic books out and I did a count, and I also organized them alphabetically just to make this video reveal go faster. So there's a total of 267 comic books in the tote that I purchased for a total of $30. So that gives us a cost of goods of about 11 cents per issue. And that is just terrific. The number one question that I get asked if someone's thinking of making a bulk comic book purchase is how much should they pay? My answer is always the same. It's about 10 to 20 cents per issue. Now, the average, of course, for that would be about 15 cents, and it's trickier to get it closer to that 10-cent mark if you're buying a smaller lot like this. Typically, you need to buy, you know, about 1,000 comics or more to get that bulk price lowered, but once in a while, you could pull it off, and sometimes you could get it for under 10 cents. And this is why, and this is how you will see me post an expensive comic book sale, and I'll tell you that I only paid 15 cents for it or less, or maybe even 20 cents, but normally 15 cents or less. You have to make bulk purchases like this, buyout collections, to pull this off. So let's dive into it and see what's in there. All right, as you can see here, I broke the comics down into 4 separate stacks. I'll explain why soon. As I go through the issues, if you see something that you like, just let me know down below in the comment section, and I'll make it a priority to list for you. You could also send me an email to primetimetreasure, no S at the end, at gmail.com, or you could send me a private message through Instagram at prime_time_treasure, or if you connect to me through my Facebook group, the Facebook Reselling Resource Center, you could also send me a message through Facebook Messenger. Now, this stack here, the first one we're going to go through, is the stuff that I find to be the most interesting and the most valuable. It also tends to be the stuff that is the oldest. Now, in terms of a tip regarding age, let's just take a look over here, because if you're outsourcing, one of the things you really want to look at is you want to look at the price on the comic book. That always is going to give you an indication. The only way it will be misleading is if it's a reproduction comic book, but it would say that somewhere inside the comic book, and usually it says it's somewhere on the outside. Now, if you see it say 20 cents, that means that you're dealing with a comic book from about the early 1970s to the mid 1970s. If you want to get verification on that and find the exact year, all you have to do is open the comic book and just go to this part, which is called the indica, and you could see right there will tell you that is the year it was made. It will also give you the exact title. Now that is important because sometimes, as I'll show you with the next comic, the titles can become confusing, although with this one, it is straightforward that this is Action Comics, which of course stars Superman. Now, this particular issue is relevant because it stars Captain Strong, and not only does it star him, but this is his first appearance in a comic book. And as you can see, he bears a striking resemblance to Popeye. That's right, good old Popeye, although he doesn't have any spinach there. You just got to keep in mind that in comics and in cartoons, there was a lot of copying and imitating of characters and character concepts across the different companies, with each one trying to outdo the other. A lot of times the character that was copied failed, didn't succeed. People just didn't like it, saw through it. But Captain Strong actually still remains popular among comic collectors, which will still give this book some value, even though it does have some condition issues with it. And you really have to pay attention to condition issues with comic books because every condition issue, every flaw will take away monetary value. So as you could see here, we have some staining on the side of the book, and you could see there, and sometimes you got to tilt it in the right light, because see right there, look, you could see the crease. Right there, the crease goes away. Is the crease not there? Of course it's there, but you've got to tilt it. So looking at comics at certain light angles is very, very important. I tend to pick them up and just tilt them from side to side just so the light captures all angles of it so I don't miss anything. Also, you want to look for little tiny tears like this because this will affect the value of the comic, as well as, you could see there's a crease up top as well on the corner. You also want to look at the back of the comic book because, as you can see here, there also is some modeling staining that's on the back. So the back issue will affect it too. And you also want to make sure that you are looking through the comic book to make sure nothing has been cut out. You want to make sure there's no pages ripped out or pages with big giant creases to them or writing on them or anything like that, because that will also trip people up. They'll see a nice outer cover and inner cover. They'll pay up for it and not realize that inside there's a bunch of damage to it. So that is a key to look through. Now, this one here, Adventure Comics, it is a very popular long-running comic book. One of the things that could trip people up who are new into comic books is they could see something like this, realize that it is old, and overpay for it because they think it must be worth tons of money because it's old. Well, it's not a bad comic book, but look here. This is issue number 434. Okay, so this comic has been out for a very long time, even though, as you'll see here, it was printed in 1974. So, there were just tons that came before it. And as a general rule of thumb, the earlier you go back to the comics beginnings, that's where most of the value usually is. There's exceptions, but that's generally the case. Also keep in mind that this says, it looks like it says Weird Adventure Comics there, right? But sometimes the comic companies would just throw a word out there just to try to make it sell better. And again, if you want to know what the exact title is, you got to open it up right there and then you will see it. Pay attention to this character here, the Spectre, because depending on who drew this character, many artists have drawn him over the years. And depending on what particular issue he's in, Spectre Comics could really command a lot of money. So pay attention to that dude for sure. Now, this is Airboy, and, it's not a golden age Airboy. Airboy does date back to the golden age, and there were 1940s Airboys, for example. There's a more modern one published by Eclipse Comics. But what I really want you to pay attention to, besides the Airboy title, to look for some older ones than this, is to also look for this character here, whose name is the Heap. This character is very popular. He has a long storied history in comic books, and there are other characters who have been copied based off of him. Probably the best example would be Man-Thing, who I will show you a little bit later. So right now, just remember this green, brownish hair and this long snout, because you're going to see this
a little bit later. Of all of the Spider-Man comic book titles to get, and there are many, Amazing Spider-Man is definitely the best one. But there are ones that are newer than this that actually command much more money. So for example, Amazing Spider-Man 300 with Venom in it is much more valuable than this one, Amazing Spider-Man number 18. Why? Well, there wasn't really anything that happened in this issue that was really that important. I'm going to do a little spoiler here, so stop if you really care about this with this issue. But in this issue, this character here, the Disruptor, was actually killed by the Smasher. But since no one really cares about the Disruptor, it doesn't really add much value to the buck. Now, this is a comic book series I absolutely love to find. Anytime you could find original Astro Boys, anything with Astro Boy in it, pick it up, try to lot it together, and it will always sell. Also, keep a lookout for this title right here, Now Comics. I used to collect these as a kid. They had some really cool titles, and it's really easily identified, obviously, by the name, but also you could just visually see it real quick because it always had this black and white kind of stripe going through on the top. So there's 3 Astro Boys there, and I will just add these to other Astro Boy titles in my collection. And we've also got 2 old Avengers comic books right here. We've got issue number 97 and issue number 102. Now, I love finding old Avengers comic books because the popularity of the recent movies has really increased the interest and the value of these old Avengers issues. Now, if you ever come across any old Marvel comic books that say anything about the Skrull versus Kree War, look into picking that up because that could add some potential value to the book because of the long and storied history of that battle in Marvel Comics. Now, also as a general rule of thumb, the more popular superheroes and villains that you see on the front cover, particularly if they're doing anything dramatic like battling or, you know, looking like they're coming out towards the comic book, like flying out, gives it kind of like a nice 3D effect. All of those things are popular and could increase some value of the issue because it gives it a front-facing appeal for collectors who like to display these types of books. So they like to see, you know, like Scarlet Witch and Vision and Iron Man and Captain America and Thor, you know, and Namor. They love that type of stuff. So the more of that in general, the better in terms of value. Now, I love old Batman comic books, and this one is no exception. This is a nice 80-page giant issue. Collectors love when they see that word giant on comic books. And with Batman stuff, if you see anything that has the Joker on it, even if it's relatively small like that, that will always increase some of the value of the book. This one's really cool because it's a special all-villain issue, and even though it does have some wear, you could see that, you know, there's some creases, there's some tears, there's some, you know, color distortion there up top. In general, the pages inside are really nice and bright and colorful, like this one here that I just showed you. I mean, that looks really cool. So, you know, this will be something that someone will enjoy reading and getting their hands on. And, you know, just going through all these stories, through all these pages. I just love seeing this kind of stuff. Really cool. And there are a few other old Batman issues in here as well. Keep in mind that this title here, The Brave and the Bold, also has Batman in it, and often some other character, like in this instance has Green Arrow. There's Captain America and Falcon. There's 2 issues of that here. This has increased in popularity because of the movies, the Avengers movies that, you know, feature both Captain America and Falcon in them. Although they are still relatively common types of books that you'll come across a lot, and so they're not super high in value comic books compared to other ones that you might run across. Now, speaking of comic books that have some potential high value, this one here is an excellent one to come across. This is Conan the Barbarian, number 24. And the reason why this one is important is not because of Conan, it's because of this redhead right here, Red Sonja. This is the first full appearance of Red Sonja in a comic book, and that makes this one potentially valuable depending on the condition of it. Now, the problem with this one, and this is why you have to be careful when you're going through these comic books, is you have to really pay attention, because there could be something that looks like a real subtle issue, like this, little line right here. It's not really that prominent, but that's actually a crease that turns out to be fairly significant if all you do is go like that and look at that. That really does decrease value of the book. I mean, fortunately, it's not a super prominent looking white streak that goes down the book. So that will help it some, and it will always have some value because it's the first full appearance of Red Sonja. But those types of things, again, you got to be careful of because they will affect value. Now, Gold Key comics are hit and miss, but this one is pretty cool because it has this vampire bat creature, and really anything with vampires, vampire bats is really popular, especially if you have like a dramatic scene like this with it, carrying someone away as a victim. That's really cool. This one is one that people look for, but the price, of course, is going to be dependent on condition. And you can see here, for example, we do have a crease going down the page. Now, keep in mind, though, for older comic books, the older it gets, the more acceptable those types of flaws become, because the comics become harder and harder to find. These are some nice old Daredevil comic books, and I like that they're consecutive. That helps sell them. You've got 98 and you've got 99. The other thing that really helps with this is that it has Black Widow in it. You could also see that we've got Hawkeye in it, and these are important popular characters from the Avengers movies. So that also helps make those more valuable. This is an old Defenders comic book. I like this one also because this one tells the origin of the Valkyrie. So that one, any kind of issue that tells an origin story, particularly of a character that people like, does help increase value. I like this one because of the name, the demon, the red and the yellow, and the drama of the cover with a big monster coming towards somebody. So that's another cool Bronze Age comic. We've got some other Batman comics. Remember that Batman also is popular through Detective Comics as well. These are not key issues. In other words, there was not some important, crucial thing that happened in either of those. So that takes some of the value down from it. This is a nice old Fantastic Four. I love the cover right there. You've got all the characters there, and you've got some dramatic stuff happening on the page, which gives it some of that nice front face value. I love these old military comics, and this is a first issue, which is really cool, for 4 Battle Tales. Now, while this particular issue might not have a ton of value, what you could do with something like this is you could add it to other military types of comic books, some of which you're going to see in just a moment, and you make a nice little, military war type of package for somebody. This one is awesome. Reminds me of the video game Rampage with the 2 monsters going down the side of the building. This one grabbing the truck, and this one grabbing the guy. Looks like he might eat him. Really cool cover, really dramatic. Again, has some of that nice front-facing value for people. Now, these 2 are newer comic books, but it's from the company Now, which I referenced earlier, and they're Ghostbusters. Ghostbuster comic books have a nice, strong collector base for them, and they love the old comics. They generally sell very well for me. This one here is actually named after Slimer, but it's fine. You could just combine these 2 together and make a little Ghostbusters lot that way. I will personally be combining these with other Ghostbuster comics that I have. Now, remember the character of the Heap that I showed you earlier? Well, doesn't this look familiar? Absolutely it does. That's Man-Thing. This is a cool issue. It's a 68-pager through Marvel. You could see it's giant size Man-Thing #1. Man-Thing is a character who is taken off of the idea of the Heaps. It's based on that character. So it's a nice, cool one to have. 2 monsters battling it out on the cover. These are some GI Combats. I love finding GI Combat. This is what I was telling you earlier, what you could combine something like the 4 Battle Tales with. Now, personally, I have a lot of GI Combats in this era that I was going to list soon, and I'm glad I found these because I'm just going to add these to that lot. We've got some old Iron Mans, and anytime you find old Iron Mans, that's good because people love Tony Stark through the Avengers and love the Iron Man character. We've got a couple old Justice Leagues here. Cool thing here, again, is that they are back to back, and this is what I was talking about earlier when I said the more characters that you have on the cover, the better. Justice League was famous for having these side panels that also wrapped around with all the different characters and the names on them. Really helps in terms of value, and that front-facing display value too that I was talking about. Kamandi is also a character that you should be on the lookout for. He's like a jungle type of character. Also sometimes used a sword, as you could see over here. And so this is issue number 4 and 5. So these are earlier issues, which I like. That's good. And I will just, again, combine them with other of these Kamandi comic books that I also have. Now, this is Kid Colt Outlaw, which is a nice old Western comic book series. I love Westerns, and I will combine this with other Western comics that I have. This is Legion of Superheroes number 1, which is really cool to find, but it doesn't actually have a ton of value in and of itself. So again, you need to combine it with other things that are similar to it. Fortunately, there's so many cool characters in here, like Superman stuff, that you could just throw this in with like an old Superman book or something else. So my point is, you have to be creative when you're dealing with these old comic books or any type of comic book collection that you get. Think in terms of ways to lot things together. But sometimes you just want to sell things as a single issue. This would be a perfect example. This is a very popular, sought-after comic book. Now, the name of the comic book is not Man-Wolf. It's actually Creatures on the Loose. If you see anything Creatures on the Loose, that any kind of old Creatures on the Loose comic book, it is likely going to have some nice value to it. And this is no exception. This is a really good one with Man-Wolf on it. In this type of condition, I might be able to get like $30 to $50 out of it. So we'll have to see what happens. That's just an initial speculation on it. But we'll see. The back looks really nice. There's none of that staining that you were seeing before. So that's cool. I mean, there's some nice books in this collection that avoided some of the damage that some of the other ones had. This one here is Marvel's Greatest Comics, and it's just an older issue, not particularly valuable, but still a somewhat cool cover. Anything that's old that has Doctor Strange on it, I love to pick up because he is super popular from the Avengers movies as well. Now, I am going to show you right now. This is my favorite one. I think this is the most valuable. I cannot believe that this is in here. Carl Bach is going to absolutely drool over this when he sees this. This is The Monster of Frankenstein number 2. This rarely ever comes to market, and look at the condition on it. I mean, it's not perfect, but I mean, it's really nice. The back of it has some staining on it, but if you're going to choose where you're going to have that type of staining, you'd rather have it on the back compared to the front. And it's so rare to find this comic book, which you could see here. This one dates back to 1972. That this is something that I'm probably going to ask like $100 or more for this issue, and we'll see what happens with it. But I don't know. We'll see. But again, this rarely comes to market. So, and the cover, by the way, is very dramatic. It's it gives a likeness to the old classic Tomb of Dracula cover with the draping woman in Dracula's arms, and here you could see there's like a female mummy that Frankenstein is holding. So very cool. Anything vintage, old, horror related. I'm focusing the most on this because I do believe that this is the most valuable comic that is in this collection. But we do have some other cool things. So we have Our Army at War featuring Sergeant Rock. Sometimes people think that this is actually called Sergeant Rock as the title. But again, if you just open up inside, you will see it's actually called Our Army at War. These are popular comic books. People love them. There's a lot of nostalgia for these books. This is a cool 100 pager, and this one is in really decent condition. I mean, look at this. It's really cool. I mean, again, you have a little bit of staining on the back, but not a ton. And sometimes the way they made these old books, there naturally was just a little bit of darkening on the back anyway. So it's something people would expect. But look at this, like inside, these really look nice. I mean, that's a lot of great vintage reading for somebody, especially if you love military stuff. That right there is an awesome book. This one is also one that is very popular. This is the giant size. This one's popular because it has Sergeant Rock's battle tales inside of it. Now, it does have some Nazi stuff on it, but it's really viewed more as a historical thing and not something that typically would get you in trouble for listing. So that's something that's important to keep in mind. There's a lot of old Captain Americas, for example, and so it usually is viewed in a historical context. This comic also has this popular battle calendar from 1971 inside of it. You want to check things like this to make sure people didn't mark them, circle them, cross things off, because that would decrease value. Fortunately, we don't have anything like that happened here. So that's also an example of a type of page you would want to take a picture of for an eBay listing. This one's super cool too, a nice old Sergeant Rock comic book. Now, Silver Surfers, these are not super old, but because, again, of the popularity of the Avengers movies, which do not have Silver Surfer in them, but they have Thanos in them. This guy right here. Anything with Thanos in it is really popular and has potential value to it, depending on what happened. If there's anything about the Infinity Gems inside, you definitely want to take a look inside and just get a sense of whether or not look it up, see if this could be something that has some value to it. So these are the other Silver Surfer comics that I found in the collection. If you've been following my channel for a while, you know that Silver Surfer is my favorite comic book character. I love this little shiny cover here. So anytime I could find Silver Surfer comics, I am a happy guy. Now, this is an old Star Wars comic book from the 1970s. It's the only one that I found in the collection, but there's two indicators here that this is a reprint. Could you tell what they are? Well, the first one here is this white box on the bottom. It shouldn't look like that. It should be filled in. In addition to that, right over here, you could see this diamond shape, which was made by Whitman. They did the reprint. The original version of this should just look like a nice square shape right on the top. So those are your two indicators over there. Now, this happens to be my favorite Superman cover of all time. I love how this lady is standing over Superman like a diva, making him kiss her pink boot. I absolutely love that. I can't tell you how many times I've sent that cover to Mrs. Primetime and I've gotten an eye roll in response. But so I actually sent it to her again tonight and I got the same response again. So this is another old Superman and so is this one here. And we also have an 80 pager here with Frankenstein on the cover. Unfortunately, it does have some indentations and some just some like murkiness to it over here. You can see like some cloudy marks and stuff, but it's still cool. 80 pager. There's some people who like the old Superman's Lois Lane and Superman's pal Jimmy Olsen, but they're not as popular as the main Superman titles. Swamp Thing, another comic book that I grew up with and absolutely love. This one actually is the number 4 issue, so it goes back quite a ways. And this tandem right here of Len Wein and Bernie Wrightson, and I should also say Joe Orlando, throw him in there. If you see those names, very, very important to keep them in mind because things they are associated with tends to be worth money. This is an older Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles comic book. It's a movie-based one, and it is relatively thick, as you could see on the side. So that's a cool one as well. Any Barbarian that has the name Thong in his name, I'm gonna give that guy a thumbs up right there. So thumbs up to Thongor. That's why I want to put him in there. So we've got Thor over here. This is an old Thor. And Carl Bach will love this one, The Vault of Evil. And how cool is this? That it's number 2. Really neat. I love this nice old horror comic book right there. And then we've got some world's finest issues, which tended to have a Batman and Superman in them. This is actually a famous cover right here, in which they are both frozen in this chamber. And then we've got another one here as well. Unfortunately, they do have some, again, some of that staining on it, condition issues. So individually, they're not going to be worth much, but you can lot them together and maybe get a little bit out of them that way. And this one here is the first ever issue of Worlds Unknown, which is really cool to have the first issue of that. So if you like science fiction stuff, you can see the coming of the Martians. We've got the monster on here. We've got, some military stuff going on there. So that's really cool. So we've got that. And over here in this stack, these are all of the Star Trek comic books. So I have tons of Star Trek comics, so I'm just going to mix these in with my other Star Trek books, but just give you a sense of some of the covers. Try to get that glare out of there for you. So just quickly flip those over so you could see what was in there. A lot of stuff with Captain Kirk, a lot of stuff with Spock in it. There's, I think, one Next Generation book in it as well. So again, shout out to Esme, because this is probably the most Star Trek comic books that I have ever revealed on here. There's a few doubles and stuff. There's actually 2 other comic books that I'm not showing you here that are Star Trek ones, because they were so dirty and filthy, like inside the bags and boards. They actually smelled really bad, like horrible, like just gross, that I just got rid of them. So I'm not showing those. Now, the last thing real quick to show you, and I don't think I'm going to go through necessarily all these issues, or maybe I'll just talk a little bit as I'm going through this really quick, is what to do with this stuff. Okay, so this is the lesser value type of stuff. You have these characters like Alter Ego who are not popular, who no one likes. Then again, you have things like Amazing Spider-Man, and even though this is not a valuable issue, you could just lot it together with other Spider-Man issues. Same thing with the Avengers comics. And again, now you get these problems sometimes with these miscellaneous things like the Badger number 69 that nobody is going to want. So what do you do with that? Well, what I suggest is putting them together into big crafting lots. Lots is the type of thing that you want to think of. Or, someone might just want to buy a big lot of random comic books just to kind of look at them. They're not going to sell for a lot of money, but it's a way to get rid of them. Now, something like this Batman one-shot here, Batman Grendel, not going to sell for a lot in and of itself, but let me show you right over here on my bookshelf where I have a lot of one-shots and trade paperbacks and stuff. I could just stick that in there and just combine them together with all these other Batman books and sell them off that way. And that's exactly what I'm going to wind up doing. Something like Amalgam, which combines 2 different comic book characters together. Individually, that's not going to be worth a lot, but you could combine it with other Amalgam comics, and that's how you're going to make your money. So again, lotting is the key thing. I talked about that during the live show interview with Aussie VHS Thrifter. Bloodshot is become more popular over the years. A recent movie came out with Vin Diesel. Again, you're just seeing a bunch of random stuff that is in here. And this is going to happen, by the way, in most comic book collections that you get. If you think that you're just going to buy a comic book collection and every single comic book in there is going to be valuable, that's just not the case. Now, this one says TSR on it, which is something that's related to role-playing games, a company that makes Dungeons and Dragons stuff. And so you can combine that with other TSR stuff. And you'll see there's some, if I show it, there's some more of it later. There's some additionally old Conan books. Again, just some random stuff. Curse of the Spawn. This is actually a long series, but I could just throw this in with other Spawn stuff. This one's a very common book. You also often see it with the cover and a card in the back. Terminator, anything with the Terminator, Deathstroke, Terminator stuff can be something that collectors like. However, you need to make sure that you're lotting it with other types of Terminator stuff. And I do have another Terminator book in here. Jim Starlin is a popular person to look out for. things he's associated with do have some popularity to it. But again, that particular title, Dreadstar, you need to have lauded, as you do with Elf Quest stuff. If it's like middle of the road stuff, like issue number 16, if you had like a #1 issue of Elf Quest, that can be popular and sell by itself. Mobius, I referenced him recently because I was talking about in my What's Sold video, I was talking about him being involved in the heavy metal comic book magazine, but this, even though he's associated with it, and he's a very popular artist and writer, that actually was a title that just never gained any popularity. So even though his name is associated with it, it's not anything that has any significant value. I guess I should have thrown this one over there. That's an old Flash comic book. Flash is very popular, especially the older those comics get, the more popular they are. Fright Night in and of itself, even though it's a now comic book, not going to sell for a lot individually, but you can combine it with other horror comic books. So just think of creative ways to lot things together. That's the main thing that I could tell you. So here we go with some more stuff. This is actually an older Hulk comic. I guess I should have thrown that over there as well. And this is a newer Hulk comic book. Even though it looks nice and bright and shiny, it's a common book. It's not really that popular. You could lot things together by publisher. So you could just sell a whole bunch of image-related comic books together. Here's some more of that TSR stuff that I was showing you. I showed you TSR just recently. So I could take that other TSR, combine it with this Intruder series, and just make a little TSR lot. Here's some more just, kind of random stuff. Invaders from Home. So there's 3 of those. And then there's some Iron Man comic books here as well. So there's just so much stuff, as you could see here, crammed into that one tote. And so, this is the thing with comics. It's actually, look at this, John Sable Freelance. I showed this recently when I was talking about the John Sable Freelance trade paperbacks that I got that are pretty valuable and sought after. I told you there were some old John Sable comic books. That's what they were based on. And there you go. What do you know it? I just come across it in a collection. Lobo, very popular character. I would look for stuff with him on it. This is actually a #1, but it's a specific series called Portrait of a Victim. So pay attention to that because you really got to know what the title is to be able to look it up and check the comps. Here's another amalgam. You can see this is a blend of Lobo and Howard the Duck in one. So you just combine it with the other amalgam books. That's what you've got to do to make these collections work for you. That's how you've got to put it together. This one's actually pretty violent. You would just put that together with another horror type of book. Man from U.N.C.L.E., unfortunately, no one really wants that. So you would just put this in some a lot of either damaged comic books, because that one does have some damage to it, or in just things that generally people just aren't that interested in, but again, would just buy as a big bulk pickup to get a nice discount, to get some reading material. Again, sometimes people will craft with this type of stuff, so you want to make sure you're right. Crafters, a lot in the title. That could be really important. People will do decoupage with the comic books, line things with them, make all sorts of creative things. I love this one. My kids got a kick out of this. Mr. Cream Puff. If I keep drinking Mountain Dew, I am going to look like Mr. Cream Puff pretty soon. So I need to, I don't want to say I'm going to cut down on Mountain Dew because I'm probably not. But I just don't want to look like Mr. Cream Puff. I mean, that's the main thing. So there's some more here. Here's some Ninja High School, which is a popular manga series. Obnoxio, the Clown versus the X-Men. It's a popular looking comic book. People like to show it, but it doesn't have much value in and of itself. People like to display it, that type of stuff, but again, not that valuable. And then you just have like these just kind of random titles that you just kind of get. And again, just try to come up with ways to theme them together. You just have something like this. Maybe you don't find another title called Psychonauts. So big deal. You just lot it together with some other kind of dinosaur type of book. Quasar. Often you'll find lots of things with Quasar on it when you get comic book lots, so you could easily make a Quasar lot. Interestingly enough, this is a superhero stamp album, so that makes sense given the stamp collection. So then we've got a whole bunch of Superman here. This is the only appearance of Wonder Woman that shows up in this collection. Unfortunately, I was hoping there would be some Wonder Woman books. So sorry, Pam, if you're watching this and you're hoping to see some Wonder Woman stuff. Not going to be the case here. A lot of Superman stuff, as you could see. Just kind of going through this really quickly. Here's that other Terminator issue that I was talking about. You can combine it with that Deathstroke Terminator, sell it off that way. Just trying to give you some ideas of things you would do. Here's another good example of a way to lot things together. Lot it by company, Topps Comics. All these come in the original bag. So there you go. Just put it together, make a little Topps comic lot. Even though some of the titles might be different, that's fine. Not a problem. You could also do a Valiant lot like that. Take this Valiant reader book, combine it with another Valiant type of book. Venom is always popular, so anything with Venom is good. These are, again, some random books. This is a total ripoff of The Punisher right there. That's exactly what I was talking about. Like earlier when I was talking about Captain Strong and Popeye, that kind of ripoff. You just see this kind of stuff all the time in comics. I actually love this one. Why did I put this one over here? Weird Worlds with Tarzan. Absolutely love it. Really cool comic book. Not a lot of value in it. Stuff with Tarzan doesn't tend to have much value, but that's cool how he's battling the skeleton. I like that. This is Modern Wolverine. Wonder Man is probably one of the worst comic titles around. It's just overproduced. It doesn't have any value. Web of Spider-Man is decent, but as a single issue, that's not worth a lot. We've got X Factor, and a bunch of X-Men stuff right over here. X-Force stuff, X Factor. This is the X-Men annual book that I showed you earlier. I took it out of the bag because it was in a really weird bag. I never saw a bag so weird in my life that thing was in. So I rescued it from it and gave it some oxygen. So these are newer X-Men. I would have liked to have found the more 80s X-Men or earlier, but unfortunately, these were mostly 1990s X-Men comic books. So I would just, again, try to lot them together. We have some Youngblood comics. I think we got here issue number 0, 1, and 2 there. Maybe if I'm lucky, I can lot those together and sell those 3 together as a little set. So keep in mind some things that people do that are sometimes crazy. So for example, this book right here, Cases of Sherlock Holmes, number 15, you will sometimes see someone take a book like this because there's not another one around and try to sell it for $100. That doesn't mean it's worth $100. This book is not worth anything close to that, but sometimes people will do something like that and list that and try to create a false impression that that's the value of the book, but it's not. These are some Spider-Man comics. Spider-Man in general is very good to find. It's always popular, will always sell, but this issue or these issues that just have the word Spider-Man on it, there's nothing else, doesn't say Amazing Spider-Man, doesn't say Web of Spider-Man, Spectacular Spider-Man. These are the modern Spider-Man books, and so these really have lower value than your older Spider-Man books that you're going to find with the other titles that I mentioned. So that is pretty much it. And so the next thing to do is to go through this stamp collection. So let's start digging in.